that's the devil.
Yeah.
And
In
then
the song,
that's the devil in the song, is that gremlin who's like, more, you must do better. This person is more successful than you.
I'm Brian Hiatt. Welcome to the Rolling Stone studio, live at South by Southwest. And I am so excited to be here with Maya Hawke.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
And you have so much going on.
Sort of, a little bit, yeah.
You have a new album, and I might screw up the name, so...
It's okay.
You say it.
A new album's called Maitreya Corso.
The pronunciation of Maitreya is what scares me, but Maitreya Corso, it's a beautiful album. You're also here at South by Southwest with a great new movie, Wishful Thinking.
Thank you.
Lots of emotions and all this stuff.
Yeah, lots of feelings. I'm a big feelings person, generally. Pro feelings, if I had to go one way or the other.
And on the first song of the album, Love of My Life, you sing, what if I got what I wanted? What if I was who I want to be? And is there a certain amount of, there's contentment, and is there also a little bit of trepidation in the idea of getting what you wanted?
Well, yeah, I think it's like the nature of, I think like whatever the human machine is that we're all inside of is like, someone on a treadmill chasing a carrot. And so I think one of the grand questions, at least in my life, is like, we're always wanting things, and that's healthy and good, especially if you can enjoy the experience of wanting, because sometimes wanting can feel like lacking or missing something, and sometimes it can feel like dreaming and aspiring to something. And I think what I was trying to explore at the time was, if I did get what I wanted, what I think I want right now, would that make me happy? Or would I then just want something else? And is there a way to reach at least a certain level of contentment with who you are, what you're doing, and what you have, that doesn't limit your creativity or your drive to keep going, to keep searching, to keep being hungry, because that's the thing that makes you want to wake up in the morning and brush your hair, right? But like, I don't know, where is that line between being satisfied and comfortable and content and kind of giving up?
So if it makes you happy, why the hell are you so sad, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, just total ripoff. Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear that chorus, which is super catchy, by the way. It's been it's not even the first single. Maybe it's the second single?
It's not.
Oh, it's not even. Will it be a single? It should
no.
Be. That is the wrong decision, but that's okay.
Well, I feel like the first song is its own kind of signal. Wow. It is both a signal and a single in its own way, because it's where people who do listen to the album start. So I feel like there's these like special positions that you can give songs.
Totally.
The first song is one of them. A single is one of them. The last song is one of them. I think. Absolutely.
No, it's a place of honor for sure. But I mean, I think a lot of people do first songs on albums as sort of, here's where I am in life, here's where I am as an artist. It's often kind of a State of the Union report. And for you, it is like, you're like a newlywed. Congratulations, by the way. And as far as like getting what you want, and you're also in this amazing moment in your career. Like, so much is happening. And I know that, I think you've talked about being like kind of an anxious person. Is there also the idea of like, kind of like with all this good stuff happening, is there an anxiety as well?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I feel like I wonder, I've talked a lot about not being as anxious a person as I think I'm perceived as. I mean, I played anxiety in Inside Out too, and I think it's an interesting line, because the public gets to know you when you are interacting with the public, like being a public person, and that makes me really nervous. Like being interviewed and being on a red carpet, and like those things make me quite anxious. But when I'm not doing those things, I'm not a very anxious person. So there's something funny in there. If I could only find the joke.
Right. I think I missed the gradation there. Okay. Yeah.
But I do. I think that song. Well, the album is bookended by that song, "What If I Got What I Wanted," and "Dream House," which is the last song on the record, which is really about joy and and getting what you want and building a place where you feel comfortable and where you feel yourself. And so I kind of wanted the record to feel like a journey, which is why I gave it that title that may be intimidating to pronounce, because I wanted it to feel like the journey of like a fantasy heroine, and a journey from aspiring towards something. Oh, I want to be with this person. I want to live this kind of life. I want to make something of myself, to like, oh, wow, I'm looking around at what I have and what I'm doing, and it feels really good. And so that's kind of the journey that I tried, the needle I tried to thread.
Maitreya is, of course, it's from Eastern philosophy. There's a Steely Dan song, Bodhisattva. It touches on a similar idea. Where did that come in for you?
I was... this is the first time I've ever spoken about this record and to anyone, and I'm
That's awesome.
Thanks. I'm very happy that it's with you. And so I really probably should have made up my mind about what I was going to say about this. And I haven't totally, but I guess that I come from kind of two different worlds, I come from a lot of different worlds and different philosophies and understanding. And I think that, Corso is a reference to Gregory Corso. And Maitreya is a reference to the Bodhisattva. And this idea of like new beginnings, and of this kind of combination of the divine spirit and the human spirit. And I don't know, it felt right to me. I was looking for a name. I was looking for a name of a fantasy heroine to go on this journey that I felt like the record was, and felt like the right name.
I definitely I feel like you're breaking free of your influences and really making something very much your own. But I do hear the places where maybe other people gave you permission to do certain things. I hear like where Joni Mitchell gave you permission to do certain things, both melodically and lyrically. Well,
she's a hero of mine.
Yeah. And throughout your catalog, but on this record specifically, the closing track I think has echoes of Joni.
That means the world to me. Yeah. Thank you.
And then also, like you mentioned, like with Taylor Swift, I think it's maybe the specificity. Although other people do that, so I don't want to assume, but is it?
Well, I think she inspired a generation. I mean, I think like she did something. I think she made a generation of young people listen to music and think, oh, wow, my life could matter. Like my feelings could matter. And the details of it could matter. My personal stories, and of course, I mean, it's a Chekhovian thing, the minute particulars, right? Like the more specific you make something, the more relatable it actually is. I'm
laughing because it's like, yes, Taylor did not invent specificity, to be clear. Yeah. But, Chekhov too.
Yeah. But it's also, I mean, but I was hugely influenced by her. I mean, I've been listening to her music my entire life.
Yeah.
And it you could start any song from any word and I would be able to know where you were and finish it probably. So it's an undeniable influence.
I guess I was specifically reminded of, recently on Tortured Poets, she was dropping like exact names of friends. And on the song Lioness, you talk about watching Sadie talk to God through the lav mic.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, it could be any Sadie. Could be like Sexy Sadie from the Beatles. It could be anything. Yeah.
I mean, but I am talking about that Sadie. And I think that they're like, names are really fun, and figuring out how to use them is fun, and indicating and winking, parts of your life. I think that there is like a dangerous line you can walk where like you don't want to really be writing fan fiction of your own life or like trying to build puzzles for people to crack, or at least I don't. That's not my game. I don't want people like listening to the songs and trying to figure out what I'm talking about. I want them to listen to them and figure out how they feel. But I do, one theme of this record, as well as like love and contentment, really was about a reckoning with ambition. And like even in Lioness, I think that to bring it back to Love of My Life is what if I got what I wanted? And Lioness is really about getting what you wanted and struggling with some discontentment with it.
Put my picture on the poster. You have that line on that song, right? And
yeah.
It's sort of like, it's weird because you might think that you kind of knew what came with fame given like what you grew up with, but I guess you have to actually experience it yourself to really know the the way something is.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think there is like there's a spectacular nature of this industry where it all is extremely glamorous. And then there's a profound loneliness to it where you're like sitting for 9 hours in a wig and makeup that sweats off of your face in a trailer waiting for it to be your turn at 2:00 in the morning. And you're like, what am I doing here? Am I being an artist right now? Am I being creative? Like, I have a terrible attitude. Like, I genuinely like, oh my God, I'm like grumpy about, I'm watching my dream come true and I'm grumpy. And like, how is that acceptable? How is that an acceptable way for me to feel inside? How could it possibly be acceptable for me to talk about that? Right. How could I get on the phone with a friend and be like, I'm so annoyed, when I'm living in my dream and so many people's dreams.
Right.
But of course, we're all human. And the same thing, the carrot on the treadmill, the nature, I think discontentment is in the nature of humanity. The happiest person in the world has bad days and days where they're not grateful and days where they're unhappy. And like that song is about those days. And there's a reason that it's not the first or the last song. And it's because that's not what most of my days are like. Especially I'm a really, really lucky person and I'm especially right now a really, really happy person. But it's not always true.
Yeah.
And so...
And also just focusing on happiness for the whole album isn't really weird.
Boring.
Yeah. But when you were watching Sadie Talk to God through the lav mic, and that's, I presume you're talking about seeing her in John Proctor Must Die or
Well, I don't think she was wearing a lav in John Proctor Must Die. I was talking about working on Stranger Things.
Oh, wow.
And about there was a day where I was really grumpy and I wasn't feeling very inspired. And I came into set and I was a background player in a scene that she was in. And I remembered how magical acting is. I just watched her like pick a spirit out of the universe and make the whole room quiet and speak truth and feel truth and turn something from a game of playing pretend into something extremely authentic and really moving.
Wow.
And it like was a kick in my butt where I was like, no, like bring it every time, every second, always. Like, yes, you're filming for a year. Don't get lazy now for 1 second. Remember what the magic can be like. And, when I was at drama school, I used to complain where I was like, oh, like 90% of our day, like, or what it was like 80% of the day is magic, but like 20% is total bull honky. And then I started working and I was like, oh, whoa, 80-20 is a high percentage of magic.
The ratio is shrinking.
Yeah, the ratio is shrinking. And that was a moment where I was like, oh, it doesn't have to. You're shrinking the ratio. You're losing touch with the magic. You're losing touch with what makes you want to wake up in the morning and brush your hair. You're depressed. Like, it's not, the art isn't depressed, you are. And so I think that, like, watching, I think she's the greatest actress of our generation, and I love watching her work in anything, but that was a wake-up call for me.
Does she know she shouted out yet?
Yeah.
Okay. You got permission?
I would never, ever in a million years not get permission. I think it's a very, I don't know. I think there's a whole other conversation we could have for an hour about the morality of writing about people and writing about your experiences, whether or not you name drop them or not. It's like
You don't ask permission if you're not name dropping, do you?
Yeah, sometimes.
Wow, really? I think that makes you an exception among songwriters.
I don't know. I think that especially, it's a weird feeling to be written about. And I've had it, in my own life from people that I love that know me and that didn't name drop me, but wrote about me. And it's weird sometimes. And it can feel exposing and vulnerable. And I don't want to put anyone in that position, and you don't want anyone also to like learn how you feel about them by like in the public, in consuming it in any way. And also songwriting, I think is, Miley Cyrus actually said this, who is also a huge influence and inspiration to me, but she talked about like that feelings enter your body, and that's not who you are, right? Like you are not a really angry in your entire self. You're a lot of things. But to write a great song, sometimes you want to zero in on a singular feeling.
Yes.
Like where you're like, oh, I'm going to write an angry song about like this, and really that's just a moment of a way you feel.
Or it's like an ember that you're fanning into a flame, but it's not really a flame until you do that.
Yeah. And it certainly doesn't encompass all of what you feel. And I think that it's, if you write a really angry song about somebody that you love, you want to be like, hey, just so you know, before you listen to this on the album, like, I'm not angry at you. I was angry at you on a day that was really inspiring and created this thing. And like, do you feel okay about me sharing that feeling with the world or not?
On what is the first single, Devil You Know, you do sing about ambition and someone calling you out on your ambition. It seems like there's you have a lot of complicated feelings about that.
Well, I do. I mean, I think yes, I think that ambition is amazing and it's a motivating force and it gets you on the treadmill. Just to keep sticking with that metaphor, like it's a TED Talk. But I think it also has a bad side. And I was having a really insecure period of time where I was feeling really bad about myself and bad about my career. And I was talking to someone and I said, I just don't think I'm doing well enough. I don't think I'm successful enough. And they asked me, well, when would it be enough? And it stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, oh, the only time it would ever feel like enough is if it was too much. If it started to impede my life, impede my ability to be anonymous, to be free, that's when I'd be like, cool, this is enough, and I don't want that. I don't want to not be able to be a person. And so that was kind of a wake-up call for me of like, oh, I've got to check in with my ambition, because the only thing that would satisfy the gremlin in me that's going, is the ruination of my freedom. And so I've got to go talk to the gremlin and figure out a way to make a deal with them that where we could both be happy.
And that's the devil.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things at play. That's the devil.
Yeah.
And
in
then
the song,
that's the devil in the song. Is that gremlin who's like, more, you must do better. This person is more successful than you, and you've got to like talk to that guy and be like, okay, what? How can we work something out? This jealousy isn't helping me. This competitiveness isn't helping me. It's not making me a better artist. And then so that's what that song's about.
Wow. And then we were talking before we started, you do a really cool thing of returning to the chorus of Love of My Life, which I think helps qualify this as a concept album. When you do something like that, that's officially when it becomes a concept album. If you do, and that track is crazy because it's kind of like you wrote it in a really interesting way with different collaborators.
Yeah, I did. Well, I've been working with a lot of the same people for as long as I've been making music. Incredible Benjamin Lazar Davis, Will Grafe, and Christian Lee Hudson, my husband. And we have been writing together all for a really long time. And I wanted to do something where each person wrote with me a different section of the song kind of in isolation. And then we combine them. And I thought that would be cool. And we ended up combining it all in a live take. I was telling you that there are some overdubs, but the kind of vast music of that Maitreya and the Way Back song was one live take, everyone in different ISO booths. I remember like Christian was in a room with a keyboard, a piano, and a guitar on his lap, and he like starts on the piano, and then he switches to the guitar, and then he switches to the keyboard, all kind of in one go. And I really kind of wanted you to feel a love story. There's a love story in this album, in kind of dealing with ambition and dealing with fear and dealing with history, kind of. As you grow as a person, I think you become more and more available to be with the love of your life because you are more you. You're this cheesiest ever, but like if you're not yourself, you're not going to find your person. And so you've got to reckon with the mirror before you can reach out your hand. And so I wanted to tell kind of a full love story, but I didn't want the album to be 20 songs long. So we kind of wanted to jam a big story in together. And my love story that I was trying to tell had a lot of different phases. And I thought each one should have its own musical personality and temperature and feeling. And so that's kind of how that came to be. And I wanted people to connect Love of My Life with that, which is why I did the reprise. Because I was like, just so you know, kind of Dream House and Love of My Life and that song, if you were to pile them all together, they're a love story.
Yeah.
So I wanted people to connect those dots. Oh, and Bring Home My Man also.
Yeah, it's your own little Abbey Road medley. It's just like a little, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You, again, have this movie that I just saw, and Wishful Thinking, and it has a fantasy sci-fi element, but it is incredibly emotionally driven. And I was saying to you, I really can see, I don't have to ask what drew you to the part, because it does seem like an actor's dream. It's the premise, this sort of sci-fi premise, is driven by emotions. It's about what happens to this couple that you're in affects the world in this sort of cosmic way, and it allows you to do so much. So it must have been a lot of fun.
It was so much fun, and I mean, so many things drew me to it. I love premise movies. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've typed into my Google search bar, like, movies like The Truman Show. And I've watched them all, and I want there to be more. And so I love, like, a good, like, slightly magical premise, to get back into the fantasy. Like, what if it could be just like our world, but just like a little bit extra? Heightened, yeah. And so I love that genre as a genre. And that was one thing. Lewis Pullman, who I got to act opposite, was another huge draw. I love his work, and I loved it before I started working with him, and I loved working with him so much. He is just a divine actor and scene partner in both the creative ways and the interpersonal ways. Very, very lucky to get to play opposite him. And I love talking to Graham and him, and they have a deep friendship, and it just felt like a really great thing to be a part of. And then I also just, the message of what you feel inside will radiate outwards. And I think there's a deep truth to that the movie obviously takes to a ridiculous degree. But I think that there's a profound truth there. That you cannot be, I don't know how much you can be miserable and angry and make the world better for other people. I think you've got to figure out your own inner landscape, and then you can help, and then you can reach out, and then you can connect. Similar to what I was saying about falling in love, you got to look in the mirror first. And I think that that's a really beautiful message that the movie holds and explores in a really playful and fun way. And it's just such delicious scenes and back and forth. And
you've done your time in a huge franchise. You're about to do time in another at least as big franchise. But I've talked to some actors who say that it's really not that much different to do something that's much more small and intimate and domestic like this. And others who say it actually can be super different. So how do you see it?
I think that gets us back to the talking to God through a lav mic. It is different if you bring something different. I think it's easier to forget what you're really doing on a big franchise. It's the pieces are so big, the sets are so huge, and it's easier to be like, oh, I'm just standing here. I'm just a kid in a super suit. It doesn't matter what I do. They're gonna, VisFX my face anyway. They just put me in a booth and made me smile and cry while they took a picture of me from a million angles so that they could animate me. And you can lose the thing that makes it feel like that, which is why I think it's really, makes it feel like wishful thinking, which is why I think it's important to go back and forth, unless you're just a legend like Sadie and you just always are at that level. But so I think it is what you bring to it, and it is what the people in the leadership positions remind you that it is and that it can be. And Hunger Games is such a special, franchise because the bar was set so high from the beginning. And like Jennifer Lawrence gives one of the greatest performances of all time as Katniss Everdeen. Yeah. And so you immediately remember that it's exactly like Wishful Thinking. That even though there's a big plane and a helicopter in this, that you can give it all you've got and leave all of your heart on the field, and that it has room for that and space for that. And Francis is such an extraordinary director, and he reminds everybody of that every shot, and allows for so much improvisation and so much play. And so I think it's different franchise to franchise, and any stage can be available for any level of magic. It's just all about what you can remember that it's for and how distracted you get by the set design.
How did your experience with Stranger Things affect or not affect your decision to sign on to another huge thing like Hunger Games?
Well, signing on to something like Hunger Games is so different because it's a one-off. It's like the Stranger Things has been my entire life
for years,
for 9 years.
Yeah.
Every other year, a whole year for 8 years, and those people are my family. The Duffer Brothers are my family, and so is the cast. And that environment was my college experience and shaped me. And so, like signing on to something with as much longevity, for me would be a very complicated decision. But like that. But that's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like one of the greatest. Like I said, it's one of the greatest franchises of all the time. It's anti-fascist populist art. Yeah. Like I want to be a part of anti-fascist populist art. That's awesome. And it's just a no-brainer. And so is Stranger Things in its own way. And so I think it's like. I've never been a person who thinks a lot about. I just try to listen to my heart, and with a character like Robin or a character like Waiss, it's like I'm looking at the character and I'm like, do I have something to offer there? Am I the right person for this job? Can I think of someone better? Like, do I think, do I feel like I fit here? Do I think it makes sense that they called me? And if I feel that spark, then I know that I'll have plenty of room to be myself there and to,
Just one last thing on Hunger Games. It's obviously a really interesting thing because we've seen this character in an older incarnation, Amanda Plummer.
She's so incredible.
Have you had contact with her?
No, but I couldn't believe it because I hadn't seen the movie that she's in a couple years when I got this call, and I remembered every moment of her performance so much, it stayed with me so deeply. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh my God, she's in this movie for 7 minutes. And and it blew my mind that was true because of what a profound impact her performance made on me when I watched it when it came out. And I just was like, oh wow, there are no small parts, there are only small actors for another platitude. But she's just, it was created such a high bar, and I'm deeply intimidated and very afraid to, and I was throughout the whole process to share a character with her.
Were you thinking about that fate for the character, or did you try to I forgot who I spoke to who was playing a character in a sort of prequel where everyone knows what was going to happen, and they said they tried to never think about what ultimately.
I thought about it a lot.
You did?
Okay. I thought about it a lot from the books and her performance because where my character exists is before what happens that puts Waiss in the position and in the mode that Amanda has her in. And so, but the same thing that happens to Waiss happens to Mags, and Mags doesn't end up in quite the same zone mentally, or in a different. So it's a question of, well, where do these characters start? Because we all, one person can smoke a bunch of weed and is totally fine, and another person can smoke a bunch of weed and have a breakdown.
Yeah, totally.
And so we all have different brain chemistry that makes us respond to different stimuluses differently. And I use weed because it's more mundane. In this case, it's torture, which is different, but still everyone responds to everything differently. And so I thought a lot about it and trying to thread the needle of how to indicate who Waiss will become, and to differentiate her from Mags whilst not jumping the gun.
Where are you with your own process of like emotional separation from Stranger Things? Have you totally closed the book, or are you still kind of?
The last 2 years of finishing the show and then like finishing the show in our life, in our personal, like going into work on it and then finishing it in the public eye, it's been the biggest graduation and emotional turmoil ever for me. I was so scared. I was so scared for it to end. I felt like I'd finally gotten my like sea legs in my community and really felt like ditched my new kid feeling and like really got comfortable right when it started to end. And I was really, really, really scared. It became such a grounding force, such a family, a character I love playing. And I was really scared to have it end. And then.
What were you scared of?
Being like a lost at sea.
Yeah.
Not having home base to return to.
Yeah.
Not having, losing those friendships, possibly. Also just like, maybe I'll never work again, sure. is always available in the conversation, And so some combination of those things was what I was scared of. And like, also, am I any good at this? I've now been playing this character for a while. Did I just get lucky and get this part? And then they built the part for me to succeed in it. And then am I actually a terrible actor and I don't deserve to be here? And I, like imposter, whatever. And so I was really scared. And then we had kind of a year of funerals, which was really intense, of like private funerals and public funerals. And, this is the last, this night of Stranger Things and the last, this night of Stranger Things. It was really sad and scary and confusing and feeling better now. And, part of that has to do with the fact that, not to reveal, but like, we're all still friends and that feels reassuring, and I've worked since, and that's comforting. And so, so far it seems like things are good. We'll see. I'll keep you updated.
Yeah. I mean, I think for viewers, series finales are kind of a reminder of death, like for real, especially when it's a long-running, beloved show. And I think that's why people kind of, especially lately with internet fandom, I think people tend to freak out one way or another as fans. And in this case, I mean, they did have this like thoroughly trying to be this really wacky thing where they refused to believe, some of them, that the finale was the finale.
They went through the stages
Conformity
of grief.
Gate. Yes.
They went through the stages
and
of
it's
grief.
easy to make fun of, but I think we can understand what that was all about.
I don't make fun of it at all. I went through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm still going through them. I think I'm close to acceptance, but if I got the call tomorrow and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come back?" I'd be like, "Yes, I would love."
You're like, if they were like Conformity Gate was real, you'd be like, "Yes,
I'd be like, take me home, country road." And so I get it. I think that, the internet's also just a weird place too. And I think, how much I've really learned that these days, there is a lot of false information, a lot of false feelings, false outrage, false everything, and that each of us have an internet that is designed for our own personal self-hatred cocktail. I've learned this from looking at friends' phones and they're being like, "Oh, you didn't hear about that? Oh, I heard about that." "Oh, you hear bad stuff about you. I see bad stuff about me and I just hear about how amazing you're doing." The internet's trying to ruin our friendship. What's happening? And so I really have been working on trying to stay out of it and having my own feelings about the show ending and my own grief and not really trying to filter through everyone else's response and feelings of people that I don't know. And so I don't it's all complicated, and people work each other up and people like the community of band. I don't know.
It's fun to, it's also...
I thought I'd have a point and then I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's also fun to hallucinate collectively.
Yes, it's fun to have a collective hallucination.
Did it bug you that Robin didn't get a final scene with a girlfriend?
Did it bug me? Well, I loved that storyline this season. I loved working with Amy Beth. I thought that she was incredible and so additive and so funny, and I love that Robin got to have a relationship. I really wanted to have a final scene with the people that I had spent the most time with working on the show. And I understand why it bugged people.
Yeah.
I like completely, and the time cut of how it worked, that makes a lot of sense to me, what I felt filming it. And what I'm so grateful to the Duffer Brothers for doing that I haven't really gotten to talk about because I haven't done that much post press. But what I was really grateful that they did was give us the opportunity to have our last scene on the show be the last scene we filmed as actors and be a scene that was allowed to be about our experience on the show. And, even like the speech that Gayton gives at the graduation is, he talks about how they lost their childhoods. I don't know if the Duffers did that on purpose, but like the way that the show wrapped up and allowed the cast and our experience making the show to feel seen and felt within the character's story as they let the show go meant the world to me at the time. So I was not mad about anything. I was very, very grateful for the catharsis that I had on that rooftop. If the catharsis didn't feel right to anyone else, I'm sorry, but it meant the world to me.
There was a lot of stuff going on in that episode. I think we can, let it. There's a lot of threads to resolve. But
yeah,
I mean, to go back to your album for a second. I mean, you started off really as the lyricist, and then I think everything changed once you really got into the other half of songwriting.
Yeah, I was really afraid.
Yeah, why?
I just didn't think I was any good. And I didn't, and I think I very quickly started, and this is like where great fortune meets its own complications. I very quickly started working with extraordinary musicians who were very intimidating. And if I hadn't been able to meet people like that, I probably would have made demos by myself in my room and put them on YouTube, but that wasn't the hand I was dealt. I was dealt a hand where it was like, hey, come over. I've got the greatest guitar player in the world here who's gonna play guitar on your, who wants to write a song with you. And like one of the great, and that's a really intimidating environment to be like, but maybe what about this?
Yeah.
And I was really insecure and really afraid and didn't think I was good enough. And didn't see why my idea mattered when there were clearly so many better, more informed ideas in the room. And it took a while and a lot of encouragement, from some people in my life to think that my idea was worthwhile, not because it was better, but because it was mine.
Yeah.
And that the closer, and again, that gets into the specificity. And that gets into Taylor, the greatest of all time, is it is about expressing yourself. And when you're expressing yourself fully, ideally people can connect to that.
Yeah, if you bring your life to the fullest life artistically, then other people will relate it to their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are a student of songwriting, I can tell. To put you on the spot, maybe a little bit, if you were to pick, I don't know, 3 to 5 of, in your opinion, in your personal canon, the 3 to 5 of the greatest songs ever made.
Yeah, it's a great question. What fun. Terrifying. Okay, first one is one that you kind of already caught me for referencing, Golden Slumbers. I think is one of the greatest songs of all time. I think Try a Little Tenderness is one of the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah.
I think that, gotta pick something new. I think gotta be Being Alive, Sondheim.
Wow.
One of the greatest songs of all time. I mean, he's just one of the greatest writers of all time, but I'll pick that one. And that's 3. And I'm gonna keep going. And what else? I'm gonna say Love Story.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say,
why that of all Taylor's songs? I mean, I might pick that as well of her songs, but
because it's original, like structurally extremely simple, extremely powerful melody, wildly like referential, like a take on a great myth, and urgent. Never. I've been listening to it for 20 years, and it never loses its potency. Never gets boring, never feels overplayed, and it has an essential human spark inside of it.
Yeah.
And Come On, Maya.
I thought you were going to say Come On, Eileen. I was like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that one.
That's not what I was going to say. I don't know. I'm lost. You know what? I'm going to say this because I was talking about it this morning.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, so maybe it's not, but it certainly isn't not one of them. I'm going to say God Bless the Child, Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
Is I think one of the deepest songs.
Well, there is a lot to talk about. I could do this all day, but thank you so much for coming here, and congratulations on everything you've got going on.
Thank you.
Which is, again, a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming to the Rolling Stones studio live at South by Southwest.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for asking me easy questions and hard questions and fun questions. It's awesome to talk to you. Thank you.
Great to meet you.